I mean, I don't want to speak for these guys to my left and right, but I don't also believe I believe they believe in hard work and never assuming something's happening, right? So through the playoffs, I didn't necessarily have that, right? I mean, speaking out of place, I didn't necessarily know if it was going to work out. You got to do something along the way that makes a race team want you. And I sit here today no different. I sat, in the floor of my little girl's bedroom last year when Chris called me, kind of told me the vision of Kaulig Racing, and I knew I wanted to be a part of that. That's why I came here in the first place. But I didn't know. I didn't know if I had done my job good enough to have a future here. But I'm super thankful to have that. Obviously, sitting here today, it was no matter what happened, whether or not I got the call, I was coming back to Kaulig Racing or getting the opportunity to come back to Kaulig Racing to drive for Matt Kaulig and Chris Rice. I was going to come here today and talk about the scholarship program with the Be the Change Scholarship and all that Kaulig Giving has done for myself, my family, and our community. When they told me they wanted to bring me back on top of that, let's tie it all together, right? So knowing this was happening today made it a little easier to sleep last night, giving what had happened. But I also don't rest easy on that either, right? I know that there's a lot for this race team, a lot for Kaulig Racing to do still left in this year, not only for the 11 team, but for AJ Allmendinger to have a chance to go win a championship. The first one for this company would be absolutely incredible, and I'm there for him to lean on and guide it any way that I possibly can through that process. But for me personally, with 2022 still here, 2023 also starts here today for me. To be able to go and work with Chandler Smith, to work with Landon Castle, those are guys that I respect. I've seen Chandler grow up and race at many different levels. Heck, I think he was probably 3'5" when I saw him getting a late model for the first time down in Pensacola, Florida. So a lot of history of those guys and respect the heck out of them, and looking forward to working with them and cheering them on as well. I mean, it starts from the top, right? And, the top being the guy's name who's on the company in Matt Kaulig, but then his leadership flows to Chris Rice, and that flows throughout our entire company. And that becomes at all legs of what is Kaulig companies. I'm super thankful to be a part of this because once you're immersed in it, you realize what that culture is, right? I've raced against that culture for the last 2 or 3 years, and to now be a part of it, you understand why it feels that way. It is legitimately that way. I've also had the opportunity to run for a lot of teams that it's all just business. And I promise you, we mean business when we're here at the racetrack, but we also like to have a good time doing it. And being able to be a part of this process, be a part of this Kaulig Racing family has let me understand how to kind of prioritize, the stuff that's supposed to be fun and when you're supposed to have fun. And forever I was so uptight about just going to the racetrack and really, valuing one's self-worth based off of whatever this past weekend's results were. That's not always the case here. These guys got your back. No different than they have my back with a scholarship. No different than they have my back by having me to drive this race car next year. That says a lot.